Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. It is now the end of October, which means it is time to talk about my October wrap up. So for the month of October, I read 8 books. I was kind of hoping that this month was going to be my all-star month where I read 14 plus books, but given the books that I did read this month, most of these books are rated for 4.5 or 5 stars with the exception of one, and I'm sure you guys already know if you've watched my previous reading vlog. We will get to that book in a second. For the most part, even though I didn't read as much as I wanted to read this month, I still read a lot of great books with very high ratings, which is the best feeling for me in general. Before we get into the video though, if you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. That way you never miss another one of my videos. And if you hear my voice sounding kind of nasally, well, I'm getting sick, or I am sick, so we love that for me. We love it. We are finally getting sweater weather, which is the best feeling ever, especially here where I live, which is excruciating hot all the time. So I'm happy to be wearing my fuzzy socks, my comfy sweaters and sweatshirts, and just comfy clothes overall that align with the weather, okay? And it's no longer 100 and something degrees outside. Anyways, enough about the weather. Let's get into these books because I'm so excited to talk to you about them. First off, I started the month strong with reading Phantasma by Kaylie Smith. Friggin' Phantasma! Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. If you are listening to me on your headphones, I'm really sorry that I just screeched. But this is how I feel about this book. This was a 4.5. I didn't give it a 5. I don't know, there was something missing, or maybe the characters in the beginning, for me their romance was too insta-lovey and I wasn't really believing it. But other than that, this book was so perfect for October, spooky season, Halloween around the corner. So good. This is a horror fantasy romance with a necromancer. There's deadly trials. I mean, the trials in this book are so freaking... what is the word that I want to say? So... I feel like I always use the same words. I'm just gonna do it. They were so intriguing, so interesting. I love the fact that there's trials in here. Not only trials though, they are deadly trials, okay? Some contestants did not make it out alive and it is just so good. The first encounter between our main female character and our main male character was perfection. Oh my gosh. I was like, I want more. Who is this Phantom? What is he all about? Why is he so mysterious and intriguing and just freaking got me in a chokehold just by one word or 2 words that he said? This was so good. I enjoyed this so much. It was action-packed. The romance was perfect. The banter between the 2 characters was good. The reveal at the end was chef's kiss. It was so good, you guys. This book, the way that I started the month off with this book, I feel like I'm truly blessed. Like, Kaylie Smith has blessed me for the month of October by just providing this book to me because it was perfection, gothic, gory, deadly trials, banter, romance. Oh, it was so good. In this story, we're following Ophelia. Ophelia's mother has recently passed away. She lives in this mansion with her sister and come to find out that they're about to lose this house that has been passed on from generation to generation because their mother had a debt and put the house kind of as a loan. Use the house kind of as a loan. So because of this and their mother's debt wasn't paid off, Ophelia's sister takes it upon her to go and pay off this debt by signing herself into Phantasma, which is a competition where contestants literally fight for their lives in these deadly trials. There are 9 deadly trials altogether, and the one that makes it out alive, because there can only be one survivor who makes it out alive, is granted any wish. And obviously her sister takes it upon herself to go and pay off that debt that their mother owes in order to keep their house. The story goes from there. Ophelia enters herself into these trials as well. There she meets our freaking, I don't even want to say grumpy because he's not, but our mysterious Phantom. This was pure perfection in a book. This was so good. Everything about this book screams gothic, atmospheric, dark, with a touch of romance. It's just perfect. Perfect, 4.5. Then I read The Cinnamon and Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. This is the second book in the... what is the name of this series? I have no idea, but it's the second book in the series. The first book is Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I gave Pumpkin Spice Cafe a 5-star, I believe. This one was a 4.5. I don't know why, because I enjoyed it. a lot, and I also can resonate with the main character. The main female character in this book, Hazel, is so relatable. Like, I feel like she is me in a book. She's very quiet, keeps to herself, very antisocial, you know, follows the rules, doesn't step out of her comfort zone, doesn't like gatherings, doesn't like to go to parties, doesn't like to socialize, barely has any friends because she's too busy being a homebody. Hello, that's me. Anyways, she's very relatable and I really loved her for it. These books are so fun. They're small town romances. What I really like about the series is that every single one of these books, the author sprinkles in a little bit of mystery in there and suspense in the background. There's a little bit of that going on, and obviously it gets resolved at the end, but it's fun to read about while you're in this cute, cozy, small town and you're falling in love with the characters and you're falling in love with the romance itself. It's just perfect. Our main character, Hazel, works at a bookstore and she's your classic, typical bookworm. She's very nerdy looking, but in a very cutesy, chic way, if that makes any sense. One day, as she's putting brand new books back on the shelves, she finds out that somebody has been dog-earing and highlighting specific parts of each book that she finds. She takes it upon herself to follow the clues. So if the clues say spend a day at the beach, she will actually reenact that and go and spend a day at the beach and live her life vicariously through these books, physically through these books as well, because she finds herself being too much of an outcast in her own story, that she wants to be more adventurous and do things that will make her step out of her comfort zone. What better way to do that than to follow these clues, do these things highlighted in certain books. Noah, which is the town's playboy, or so he's known to be, who is always up for adventure, decides that he wants to help her go through the scavenger hunt, and together they do these things. They go on these friend dates and they just explore the town and do all these adventurous things together, and it's so cute. It's perfect for the fall again, and you will love the main character Hazel, because if there's one thing that all book lovers, mostly all of us, have in common, is that we're very, at least I can say for myself, you know, I can be very much of an outcast. I don't like to go to events. I don't like to go out a lot. I'm a homebody to my core. I'm not very social in a sense. I'd rather stay home and read a book. And you can relate to that. That's what I love about this the most, is that the main character is so relatable. But again, there was just something that was missing. I felt like it was missing, which is why I gave it a 4.5. It was a great book, don't get me wrong. I just felt like I enjoyed the first book and the romance on the first book better than this one. But nonetheless, very cute, very cozy, very steamy as well. There's a bookstore and a bookworm. It was perfect. Then I read Spookily Yours by Jennifer Chipman. I picked this up because I saw this book everywhere, okay? Everywhere, being advertised everywhere as the perfect spooky, paranormal, Halloween, spicy, steamy romance. And that's exactly what it gave. It gave all of that, and it was perfect. It was perfect. We're following our main female character, who happens to be a witch, and her newly adopted cat, because in this story she lost her familiar. As you know, witches do have familiars. They need them. It's just part of who they are, you know, as a witch. So she's recently lost her familiar. It's been a few years, I think, and she has decided that she, at this point, needs a new one. So she goes to the adoption agency and she adopts her newest familiar, which happens to be this black cat in the outside. However, he happens to also be a demon trapped in a cat's body. And it's so perfect. This whole idea and premise of this book is so freaking interesting. I don't think I've ever read anything like this before, like a witch falling in love with her demon cat. Let me not forget to mention the fact that when she finally decides to help and realizes that her cat is a demon stuck in a cat's body, she decides to help him. And when she uses her magic to help him lift his curse and go back into his demon form, he happens to be the hottest man that she has ever seen. And the story goes from there. And it's so good. It's so freaking spicy. It's so steamy. It's perfect. It's got all the Halloween vibes and energy that you can imagine in a book. The whole town itself where these characters live in is just so Halloweeny, so spooky, so perfect, so atmospheric. It was just a fun time. I gave this book a 4. It was Very, very good. Then I read my only 2-star of this whole month, and that is, unfortunately, I'm so sorry you guys, that is Immortal Dark by Tigest Girma. I had such high hopes for this book. I'm not gonna really talk a lot about it, but it was very disappointing for me. It was so disappointing. The whole entire book was very confusing to me. The backstory and the history between the characters and the different houses was so jumbled up. It felt like it was so jumbled up and it did not make any sense. I found myself not caring about the history, which I feel like in this book, the author kind of wants you to care about the history and the background of these characters. If you didn't know what this book is about, this book is following Kadan, and Kadan is a human living amongst a world of vampires and humans. Kadan's aunt recently passed away. Because Kadan's aunt passed away, she gets to inherit this house that has been passed down from generation to generation. In order to take ownership of this house, you have to go into this university and pass before you can claim the house. In the meantime, though, there are vampires, if I'm understanding correctly. There are vampires who live amongst these different houses, have the privilege to suck your blood as a human. Even though you own the house, vampires have been assigned to different houses, and you, as the person who owns a house, are kind of tied to them and their families and their ancestors, and they get to drink from you. So essentially, this is supposed to be a dark academia vampire human romance, but again, like, this book had so much potential for me. The atmosphere of this book is so exceptional and it's perfect for the spooky season. The university itself is very interesting. The backstory of the house that literally has a mind of its own, it's full of magic, is also interesting. But then when you start getting into the characters, which to me were all insufferable. I did not like any single character in this book. I love to hate a bad character. Like I can deal with an insufferable character if it's done the right way, and I feel like this is one of those things where I lost it with this author. Like, none of the characters I cared about. There was barely slim to none romance in here. I was very excited about a human and a vampire. Like, I was very excited about that. Both of the main characters were so insufferable to me. And also the history that could have been full of so much potential felt like a jumbled mess. Like, none of it made sense. And I did not have a good time reading this. I'm so sorry. If you guys enjoyed it, then you are obviously better than me, because it was like pulling teeth for me to finish this book. I dreaded every single bit of this book. I should have known that I should have DNF'd by the time I hit to page 100. When you're already in 100 pages, you kind of get a feeling of if you like the story or not, if you like the characters, if you like the plot, if you like what the main book is about. But I just dreaded it the entire time. And a lot of it to me felt very like jam-packed, information thrown in your face, not really explained very well, and then add insufferable characters, slim to none romance. What is there really to look forward to? You know? So this is why I gave this book a 2. I sat on it for a couple of days before I decided to give it a low rating. But unfortunately, you guys, this was probably the biggest disappointment for me this month. And I just feel so sad saying that. We already know what's coming up, okay? If you watched my vlog, I freaking got obsessed with this book. And that is Nocteddia by Keri. Nocteddia! Oh my gosh, okay. What can I say? 5 freaking stars, 6 stars, okay? This was so good. Dark academia, forbidden age gap romance between a student and her professor. On top of that, this has got the most spookiest vibes in the background. I mean, everything about this town is dark and gloomy. The school itself is dark. There's possibly a cult, an underground society that's almost borderline occult. We have a parasite, which is the most interesting thing. This has a lot of science in it, which to me was so freaking interesting. I love how Kaylie combined dark romance, forbidden love, student professor, but you also have a parasite and you also have science, and these kids are freaking geniuses, okay? Geniuses. We're following Lilia. Lilia lives not in the best part of town. She lives with her stepfather because her mom recently passed away in the most gruesome way ever. Still, as of this day, Lilia doesn't think her mom's death was accurate, that how the police deemed her mom's death was inaccurate based on the things that she's seen. Lilia gets offered to go to this university, and there she decides to study the parasite in which she believes her mom actually died from. And obviously there she starts working with Dr. Death, aka Professor Deverick Bramwell, who is a pathologist. And so the story goes from there. This book has atmosphere, dark, I want to say paranormal elements maybe, parasite. The romance is so good. It's a slow burn. Like, it's a slow burn romance, but when the romance gets there, you guys, it is so worth it. And also, there was a plot twist towards the end of the book. I did not see this coming, and I am so freaking intrigued. So intrigued by this one character that shows up in this book. And I really hope that the author is planning on having that person's story told in the same universe, because this was so interesting. I want to read more dark romances like this that incorporate obviously the dark themes, but it also incorporates science. Like, this was so fascinating to me, reading about these parasites and how they consume one's body and what happens when they do consume the person. It was just so interesting. Everything about this book was so interesting. There was not one part of the time that I spent reading this book where I was bored, where I wanted to put it down. I just had the most amazing time reading this, and if you haven't read this already, please do. Obviously pair it up with the audio because it was exceptional. Then I read Slasher Pass by Taylor Paige. Let me just tell you, this book was the perfect book for October because this is a horror slasher dark romance. Okay, and this is reverse harem between a girl and two guys who happen to dress up in a ghost face mask and stalk her and taunt her and haunt her and just have their way with her. That's all I'm gonna say. This was so fun. This was like unexpected for me because it was literally 552 pages and I was not once bored. I was very invested and intrigued. We also have a suspense aspect to it. I'm not gonna say much, but obviously there's murders. People are getting stabbed left and right. Our main character is just trying to stay alive. She also lives in this very gothic looking house. And we have masked men stalking her in the background, like slashing everybody left and right. It is so good, so good. Not only that, but they're wearing the ghost face mask. There's so much jam-packed in this book. This is not just your smutty Halloween horror dark romance, okay? This has more elements to it. It's dark, so check your trigger warnings. The storyline was interesting. The slasher aspects of it was very good. Like, I don't know about you, but I love me a good slasher movie or book. I just have such a fun time reading those things or watching the movie, you know, like I love those kinds of horror films. So the fact that this was in a book, but make it dark romance and have suspense in the background, have murders happening, have slashing happening, also make it a reverse harem dark romance, perfect for October. 4 stars. It was really good. I had a really great time reading it. And then I finished the month off. Okay, I finally did it, you guys. I finally took these books off my long-awaited TBR. And I'm so freaking proud of myself. I finished the month with reading One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. Okay, at first I will admit that book one took me a little bit to get into because the narrator of the book, it took me a while to accept the way that she narrated because in the beginning it almost felt very monotone, like she had no emotion to her voice at all, and I need some kind of emotion, okay? I gave this a 4. I don't know why. I loved it. I enjoyed it. But I think it was also because it took me a while to get into. Don't get me wrong though. The magic system is so freaking interesting. I understand why people rave about the magic system. And it's not that the magic system is this incredible, off the wall, like crazy magic system. But it is very interesting. We have a deck of cards, of 12 cards. The magic is within these cards. Anybody, human, anybody, can literally tap the card 3 times and consume the magic. However, magic has a price. If you consume it for too long, you start experiencing the after effects of it. You start stepping into the darker side and feeling certain things. Like, for example, there is a card in here that's called the Maiden card. The Maiden card actually gives you the ability to be beautiful, flawless, no wrinkles, no lines, and it also gives you immortality in a sense, because if you get hurt or anything like that, it heals you like that. The more you consume its magic, the longer you have its hold, the less you start to feel type of thing. So you become kind of this shallow personality of a person that doesn't feel regret, remorse, sadness, love, passion, anything. That's how interesting the magic is. I don't really want to say a lot because I know you guys know what this book is about. This series is full of atmosphere. It's got so many great elements to it. Again, the magic is so interesting. The romance in this book was okay. I didn't really get a lot of the romance in here. It wasn't like full up in front in your face. Almost felt kind of like secondary to the story, but nonetheless, the story itself is very, very interesting. So in this world, there is this deadly mist, and if people get hit with this mist, you consume magic in a way. And so in this world, this mist is no good. So those who have been infected by it are, you know, killed off, which is really sad, but they are killed off. Now, our main character, Elsbeth Spindle, when she was the age of 12, I think, as the mist comes, she gets infected by it secretly. She has been hiding her disease for years and years. She gets infected and she acquires a demon in her head called the Nightmare. And so the Nightmare is always in her head, whispering to her, saying all these different things. That is her disease. That is her infection. So when she meets a highwayman one day walking in the forest, she decides to team up with him, and together they try to work together to lift this mist. And the story goes from there. Again, it's so interesting. The story, the actual background in the story of why there's a mist, why there's a demon in her head is so interesting to me. I was just impressed. I was so invested and interested in this storyline and the background of this mist and these characters and this nightmare. Like, it was so good. 4 stars for this one. But then I read Two Twisted Crowns. Friggin' 5 stars. I mean, I understand why this is everybody's favorite. This is everybody's favorite out of this duology. And I know why, or at least I'm going to tell you why it's my favorite. It's my favorite because the freaking romance between these two side characters in this book is so freaking good, okay? It's so good, the banter. The forbiddenness of it, the love, the passion. Oh my gosh. I've never read and fell in love with 2 side characters in my entire life. And I love both of these characters. Honestly, I didn't really care about the main character and her love interest. I cared about these 2 though. That romance, this was perfection. This was so good. This was my favorite book, obviously. I'm like in the group now. This was my favorite book out of this duology. I cared more about these side characters and their romance and what they were up to. And again, not only are these books filled with a gothic, dark atmosphere, the magic system is incredible and interesting. We have a side plot of romance in there. It's almost like the author was like, oh, you didn't get enough romance in here in this one? Let me just purge out all the romance that you missed in this book in this one with 2 side characters. I've never fallen in love with 2 side characters more than I have with these 2. And I don't want to name them because I don't want to spoil anything. But I was so invested as everything else was happening in the background. I was so invested. Not only is this book above and beyond and it's got all those elements that I just talked about, there's also some political intrigue in there that was so interesting. When there's political intrigue in books, to me that is just so fascinating. Gets me on a chokehold type of thing because the backstabbiness of it all, the things that these bad characters do, just unbelievable. You know, jaw-dropping type of things. Like, I can't believe how conniving some of these characters are. Anyways, 5 stars. I'm so glad I ended the month with this. So there you have it. Those are all the books that I read for the month of October. Lots of great books, you guys. Again, I've only had 1 low rating book this whole entire month, and all of these books had some kind of element that attracted me to them to want to read in October. All of these are perfect to read in October. This one's probably better to read in August, you know, late August, September, November, but other than that, the rest of these books kind of fit the vibe that I was going for, which is dark, gothic, atmospheric, some messed up romance thrown in there, like masked men. Hey, don't judge me. So that's it. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will catch you on my next one. Bye!